Right. Good evening, everyone. So it's just gone 7:30, so we'll get started. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Looks like we've got quite a nice crowd. I think I recognise some of your names, so nice to see you again. So I've got a couple of things I was going to run through, really just to introduce what I do and introduce the team as well. But I've got some sort of general information about menopause and nutrition to go through. But really what I wanted to do this evening was just open it up so you can ask us any questions, find a bit more about us, and hopefully we can answer your questions. But one of the big questions that I do get from a lot of my clients or potential clients is how much nutrition will make a difference to your menopause. Obviously, all of us are going to be massively biased because, of course, it's the most amazing tool in the whole world. But it's a really common concern for people to think, well, can I not just go to my doctor and get HRT? Can I do it instead of HRT? Can I use it with my HRT? Is it going to change anything? And I think the question or the answer to all of those questions is yes. You know, nutrition will help everything, whatever you do, whichever path you choose. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Charlotte Hunter. I'm a nutritional therapist, functional medicine practitioner. I've been in practice for about 12 years now. And I got into menopause nutrition really because of my own experience after hysterectomy in 2019. I mean, I prior to that, I'd worked with lots of different clients with all kinds of problems, men, women, children, everything. But it was really after my own experience of a hysterectomy that I became more interested in menopause nutrition. So I now focus exclusively on women going through menopause, perimenopause, postmenopause, anything with menopause in the title. And over the last year or two, I've created the magnificent team you see alongside me today. So how do I work? I work with individuals, work in groups, or we all do rather. I also do some corporate work and I have some practitioner training. So if you are a practitioner and you want more details, you can email us. I also work for KBMO Diagnostics and I've previously worked for a couple of labs, which some of you may know. So just a quick word, I will share the slides, I will share the recording, not the slides. And if you do have any questions, please add them to the Q&A. You can tell it's evening. I can't quite get my words right tonight. We can't give any personal advice regarding supplements or medically diagnosed conditions, but we will do our best to answer questions if you do have them relating to those kind of things. And if you have any specific inquiries, anything you don't want to talk about, you can email them to hello@charlottehunternutrition.co.uk. So just to recap again, we're going to introduce the team, explain how we can help you. We can talk about some of the services we offer, and then mainly it's all about the Q&A. So get your questions ready, or I'll just make some up. Or I'll just start picking on people. So my name's Charlotte Hunter. I've just really introduced myself, so there's not much more to say. I do have a particular interest in surgical menopause, chemically induced menopause as well. And I'm going to go straight to the team. So the first person we have is Claire. So she's our clinic manager. I'm not quite sure what your job title is, Claire. I think I keep changing it, don't I? Every time I do a slide, you're clinic coordinator, clinic manager, director of operations. I mean, I think it's probably all of the above, isn't it? Claire specialises in weight loss, especially perimenopausal ladies, and also runs our metabolic balance program, not plans, program. But Claire, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I trained at ION, but my background really have a sort of foothold in conventional medicine. So I've come from a nursing background, but I, have sort of transitioned through this sort of, like we all do, through this sort of into nutrition, and yeah, trained at ION. And then I've sort of gone on to sort of specialise in weight loss with women, and used metabolic balance, which is amazing. I don't know what else to say, really.
Well, Claire is going to be running a session on weight loss.
Yes, in a couple of weeks.
In a couple of weeks, yeah. So we will be sending out some more details about that. Also, Claire really deals with all the inquiries that come in. She's the first point of contact for everyone, and she will manage all of the appointments, the bookings, everything. So we would grind to a halt without Claire, I think. I did a webinar the other day and it went a bit wrong and Claire wasn't there and I said, where's Claire? We've also got Fiona. So Fiona, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, so I also trained at ION with Claire, and my career previously was totally different. So I was in marketing for telco, and I had quite a complex health journey myself with IBS as a teen, and then infertility. And I just decided that I wanted to change my career and start helping people, instead of kind of putting myself under this constant pressure of being in this this kind of marketing career. And I work, I guess I work mainly with perimenopausal clients. So I work with Charlotte's more younger clients, so sometimes late 30s into early 40s. And often it's kind of the most terrifying time because your hormones are changing, but you don't necessarily realize that. You kind of start to not recognize yourself and you think, hang on, what's going on with me? You know, you can't concentrate, or you're just getting really ratty with your family, and you don't really realize that it's the start of kind of perimenopause. So a lot of the clients I see are quite frightened of what's going on with them, and it's nice to kind of reassure them that it's part of the normal process of hormones changing. And then I also work in fertility, so I work in a fertility nutrition clinic, and I see similar age, I guess, which is nice. So clients late 30s, early 40s, who possibly might be experiencing some hormonal changes but still want to have a family. So I kind of figure out how I can support them in having a baby a bit later on in life. So it's nice.
Brilliant. Well, look, Fiona, I know you're not feeling very well, so I won't.
Oh, yes, I don't sound myself.
Oh. And we've got Amanda as well, who is also a nutritional therapist, but also a nutrigenomics expert. So Amanda, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I trained at C&M, and basically I went into nutrition because I'd been through panic disorder, which I'd been previously to nutrition. I'd been an air stewardess and worked in retail for many years and had never had any anxiety or anything like that. And just this anxiety started, and then panic developed, an OCD, and it went on and on and on for quite a long time. And so I decided to do nutrition to try and help myself out, really. Like most of us that do nutrition, we've got our own health journey, haven't we? Which is kind of what gets us there. And then it was through nutrition that I didn't quite get all of my answers, my questions answered. I'd had a baby that had to have quadruple heart surgery when she was born, and could never understand why that might have happened to her. And basically that was when I got interested in methylation and got interested in nutrigenomics. And then when I understood more about that, I could see what had happened really with me. And then when I first started practicing, I was really interested in fertility because of the fertility journey that I'd had, which had taken quite a long time to get pregnant. And had fertility treatment and what have you. And so basically that was what I really started in. But then I kind of realized that, you know, you don't get to pick your specialism. Sometimes the universe gives it to you. And it kind of ended up being that I was more involved with histamine and MCAS and Ehlers-Danlos and that kind of presentation. And that's kind of where I still am now, with a real good interest in methylation and, you know, how all of the nutrigenomics affects this stage of our life. You know, I'm 50, so this is really relevant to me with menopause and what have you. And it's a good place to be able to understand what other people are going through, like Fiona said.
So Amanda, just for people who won't know or don't know, can you just very briefly just tell us what methylation is? I know that's a ridiculous question, but just in a sentence.
I like to think of it as activating and deactivating things. So activating things such as vitamins and deactivating things such as hormones.
Excellent. I'm going to steal that. That's a brilliant explanation. And finally, we've got Melanie. Melanie, I'm so sorry I've missed off your letters after your name. I do apologize. They were there and they've disappeared. So obviously user error on my part. But do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Yeah, sure thing. Hi, everyone. My name is Melanie. I'm also a nutritionist and also a health coach. I qualified from the College of Naturopathic Medicine. As the slide says, I specialise mainly in the perimenopause, helping ladies feel balance in their life, feel empowered in their life, in all aspects of their lives. I worked for a long time as a careers coach, so coaching and motivating people within their careers. And it's really been lovely to combine my love of food and nutrition with my skills in coaching and motivating people as a nutritional therapist. And as others have said, yes, I've had my own personal health journey, lots of little things like, well, not little, but, you know, experiencing IBS, quite severe anxiety, which all sort of culminated in a diagnosis of an autoimmune thyroid condition, which I manage totally through nutrition and lifestyle medicine. And it's that sort of thing that I love to share with clients. And yeah, that's about me.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, we've all got our health baggage, haven't we, as nutritionists? So I thought I'd just run through a couple of, I suppose, basics. I mean, I say basics, but they're not, because so many people don't quite get all this. And I'm always quite surprised. You know, as women, we should know what our equipment is doing and how it works. But it's just to give a bit of background this evening, so then we've hopefully got a nice platform to then kick off with some questions. But I think when we think about our hormones, they're constantly changing throughout our cycles, and cycle to cycle, year to year, you know, we see lots of changes. We have to remember that we're quite primitive beings, and our physiology hasn't changed that much over the years. And really the prime goal of our sex hormones is to prepare for reproduction. So that doesn't matter whether we're 13 or 43. If you're having cycles, that was what your body's so ultimate goal is, like, let's make a baby, make babies. And you can see from that diagram that things, you know, rise and fall throughout the month, so that we can, you know, achieve that goal. So, you know, on day one of the cycle, at the beginning of that diagram, you know, estrogen, progesterone levels are really low, which signals the pituitary gland, which is in your brain, to produce follicle stimulating hormone. And this begins the process of that follicle maturing throughout the month. At ovulation, which is usually around mid-cycle, right in the middle here, those higher estrogen levels trigger a rise in another hormone called luteinizing hormone, which again comes from the pituitary gland. And this should cause that follicle on our ovary to release an egg. And then for the rest of the cycle, we're supported by progesterone, which is the blue. Is that the blue one? I can't remember the blue one. Is it blue, green? I think I need my glasses on. Sort of teal sort of coloured. And if that egg isn't fertilized, our hormone levels drop at the end of the cycle and our period starts. So you'll see at the bottom of the diagram there that we've got three phases. We've got this follicular phase where the egg is developing. We've got ovulation where it's released. And then we have the phase that's right before our period, or the luteal phase. And all of these hormone changes that we see, you know, this is all very textbook. This is what should happen, but they can vary from woman to woman. There's no blueprint, and those hormonal shifts can be gradual, or they can be fast and furious. And many of us have experienced hormone imbalance throughout our lives, know all too well how it can affect you when your hormones are rising and falling. So it's those shifts in our hormones that can affect things like stress, eating patterns, sleep. And then just as we figured all of this out, well, I'm not sure my body ever actually did, but the majority of women, you know, when you find your groove with your cycles, along comes perimenopause, and you're hit with this. So the section of perimenopause is over here, these red lines where everything is just like, all over the place. And then eventually we hit menopause and things get, you know, the estrogen is much, much lower. You don't stop producing estrogen, but everything is produced in much, much, much lower levels. But the problem that we have is it's these fluctuations in our estrogen that cause all of those awful symptoms that we recognize through perimenopause and through menopause. And actually, many women continue to experience issues, you know, years postmenopausally. I've had a number of clients who come to me who went through their menopause 10, 15 years ago, and they're still having hot flushes, night sweats, insomnia, dryness, dry eyes, you know, the whole list of symptoms that we can see. But your perimenopause, as will be the case, your menopause will be completely unique to you. So there's no pattern here. There's no script that we can follow. And this is why, you know, I suppose the big question is, what are hormones? Well, hormones are going to affect everything in your body, and everything in your body will affect your hormones. They're chemical messengers. They're traveling around the body. There's about 150 chemicals known as our hormones. And they race through our body daily, acting as chemical messengers, telling the brain and other organs what to do. I mean, that's the really simple overview. We know that they're horribly complicated. But hormones can affect our metabolism, blood pressure, reproduction, liver, kidney function, appetite, aging, sleep, sex drive, skin. You know, I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And the hormones in our body are controlled by feedback systems, a bit like a thermostat in your home. So if a particular hormone is too high or too low, your body's going to respond and adjust that accordingly. But there's lots of things that can upset that delicate balance. So we've got the mighty force of aging, nutritional deficiencies, stress, that can be physical, emotional, diseases, conditions, alcohol, drugs, and sometimes just not sleeping can really mess up your hormones. So in women, the main hormone that we focus on, or main hormones rather, are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And the focus is always around their influence on reproductive health, but they can affect aspects of our health in, you know, all parts of our body. Menopause discussions mainly focus around estrogen, and I think that there is a good reason for that. I mean, the other hormones are important, but we do have estrogen receptors all over our body. So when things go a bit wonky, symptoms are going to be diverse, they're going to be complex, and they're going to be everywhere. You know, if you think of the list of menopause symptoms, I mean, they are literally head to toe, aren't they? You know, they affect everything from, you know, your hair to your little toenail, probably. So menopause normally hits between 45 to 52. And technically speaking, we need to be 12 months past our last menstrual period before we can, declare ourselves postmenopausal. But I'm sure the girls here will agree that, you know, we do see clients who will say, oh yeah, I haven't had a period for 3 years and then I had a really random one, you know, which comes. And actually a lot of ladies who've had COVID have suddenly said that weird things have happened to the cycles, or whether it be vaccines, they've suddenly gone, I've just randomly had a period. What happened there? So, you know, estrogen is complicated, it's messy, and it really does explain why things can be so challenging at perimenopause, because we've got this really unpredictable spiky pattern in our hormone levels. So menopause is all about estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Well, not really. Yes and no, I suppose. As we've already said, when it comes to hormones, everything affects everything. And that's exactly why nutritional therapy and functional medicine can be a huge help during this time. Many of my clients are on HRT or they've had hysterectomies and they still feel absolutely rotten. Many clients are still, caning it down the gym and can't understand why they can't shift their weight or why they've got that really stubborn belly fat, despite seeing a personal trainer and going on all kinds of crazy diets. And I know they're two quite extreme examples, but I think nutritional support can be life-changing for a lot of people because we can tailor, or it can be tailored to your needs and your particular challenges. So as nutritional therapists, I think it's important for us not to be just thinking about estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. You can get that measured at your GP, you can get HRT from your GP, and if it was that simple, I think we'd be out of a job. But what we're interested in is really how the other hormones are interacting with your sex hormones and how we can create stability and balance throughout your whole system. So we might look at hormones like DHEA, what's happening with your thyroid, your insulin and your blood sugar balance, your stress hormones like cortisol, oxytocin, which is your love hormone, and even melatonin, which is a sleep hormone. So we're looking at the bigger picture. And hormones, I've said they affect everything, but also they work in harmony. So if one's out, they're all going to be out. And we also know that sex hormones are a reflection of what's going on in your body as a whole as well. So the window to your soul. But really, I suppose that's just a very, very, very brief overview to our cycles, how they can change at menopause, perimenopause. And really, I'd love to just open this up to questions. And we'll see if we can answer any. I mean, if you do have any questions, technical, practitioner-based, or a secret question you just don't want to share with a group, you can email us at hello@charlottehunternutrition.co.uk. Or you can post your questions anonymously as well. I think that facility's enabled on this particular webinar. So I have got a question from Joe McGowan. Due to my low estrogen, my cholesterol is high. I eat well, but are there any areas of my diet to concentrate on? The only advice my GP gave me was to try Benecol, but that doesn't seem to be that thorough. Would anyone like to jump in and answer that one? Everyone's scratching their heads a bit. I mean, I think. Oh, Amanda's going to be brave.
Go on, I'll be the first one. There is a gene in methylation that basically affects how the body utilizes fat. So whenever I see cholesterol results come back high and diet doesn't support that, that's the first thing that I think about, because it actually affects choline, which Charlotte would explain to you is basically provided for us by the ovaries in the baby making years. But then basically when the ovaries stop to produce the estrogen, we need to have more choline for acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter, and phosphatidylcholine for the cell membrane. So quite often it can be down to a PEMT issue or a choline issue as well. Just putting my 2 pence worth in.
So I mean, can you explain what choline is?
Yeah, so choline is basically, you can get it in food sources. It's mostly in egg yolks. It's in a few other things. I think it's in chicken and beef as well. But it actually is a component of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which is obviously our main neurotransmitter. So, people, ladies, when they're going into the menopause, they think that the brain fog is due to the menopause, and in a way they're right, really, because if the ovaries are not producing the level of estrogen that they once did, we need to get the choline source from either food or supplementation. So, and then there's obviously things going in and out of the cell regularly through the receptors. So, the health of the cell is really important. And then, choline is a component of phosphatidylcholine. So thinking about getting toxins out, getting the vitamins in to be methylated and things like that. So I've seen that quite a lot on methylation results, and it's also a risk factor for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease as well.
Excellent, thank you. I think with high cholesterol as well, excuse me, I think my thoughts are always, and this is a very sort of, sounds very simple, but I think it's a good idea to try and think about how our cells talk to each other, and think about how we can make our cells as healthy as possible. Choline being one of the ingredients for healthy cells, healthy essential fats. But I think also when you think about cholesterol, you've got to cast your net a little wider, and think about things like other metabolic markers. So think about your glucose levels, your insulin levels, how balanced is your blood sugar throughout the day? And often the body will produce more cholesterol when it's under attack. So if I know lots of people who are waiting for surgeries for certain conditions, particularly some musculoskeletal things, or anything that's highly inflammatory, and you'll see that their cholesterol markers on their pre-op checks, or just regular bloods from their GP, their cholesterol shoots up. So I think it's, there's a lot more to cholesterol, isn't there, than just how can we get cholesterol down for diet. I think it's a much wider conversation depending on what's going on for you in the past. Joe said, interesting, as I suffered a fatty liver a few years back and got that under control with diet. So yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
I see it a lot. I see it a lot with fertility clients, and it's kind of down to the stress, like you were saying, the stress and the inflammation that comes with stress, and it's I'm starting to see cholesterol kind of way over 7.
Yeah. And I think it's difficult when you go to your GP, because sometimes they'll say, well, you need to manage your cholesterol through diet. And if we think about what Amanda said, we need to get that choline in, but what's one of the best sources of choline? Eggs. And then the GP doesn't want you having loads and loads of eggs. So it's often a really difficult one to, I think, manage conventionally. We have to think outside the box and certainly apply, all of that knowledge, based on, I think, someone's own personal story. That's a really good question. I hope we helped a little bit. And if you do need any of the advice, please send us an email and we can point you in the right direction. Any other questions? I don't know whether it's because it's 7:30 at night. Oh, here we are. Dorothy's got a question. So what blood test would we use to see what hormones are affecting weight while on HRT? Cortisol, thyroid? So that's quite a good question, isn't it? I think the way that we work is, if you're perimenopausal or menopausal, very often doing a blood test to look at your estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, I nearly forgot that one. It can be quite limiting. And also, if you're in perimenopause or menopause, your levels can fluctuate massively. And what you get with a blood test is a moment in time, and really just what's in circulation. It's very much a snapshot, and it's not necessarily going to tell you much about how your hormones are behaving. Really, it's just telling you what the levels are. When we go through menopause, the levels almost become irrelevant. I know that sounds like a bonkers thing to say, because menopause is always about, well, what's my estrogen level? What's it doing? But from our perspective, and certainly from a metabolic angle, if we're thinking about weight gain, stress, all of those things, we want to, again, cast that net a bit wider. So the test that we would probably use most commonly would be a Dutch test, which looks at your sex hormones, your stress hormones, It looks at potential nutrient deficiencies, so things like B12, B6, glutathione. It looks at some of your neurotransmitters. It looks at your melatonin, which is a sleep hormone. And it also looks at what your hormone levels are, obviously, but more importantly, how you're breaking them down and how you're potentially getting rid of them as well. So it's going to give you much, much more information than just a standard blood test. I think also with the Dutch test, you can get some insights into your thyroid health. When we look at your stress hormone cortisol, depending on how you make it and how you use it, you might get some indication about, could there be an issue there? So that's one test we might use. Another test would be a thyroid panel, where we look at the different thyroid hormones, look at your antibodies, and also supplementary nutrients like vitamin D, folate, B12, look at your inflammation. And then I think the third area you could potentially look at, and this, whichever test you choose, is really going to be based on what's going on for you. There isn't sort of a standard test that would be suitable for everyone. But I think the third one would be looking at those metabolic markers that I mentioned. So your insulin, your glucose, your cholesterol in great detail, kidney function. There's lots of other areas that we can look at. Does everyone sound all right? A bit of a funny, can everyone else hear that? No, it must just be me. So I hope that's helped, Dorothy. And I think the difficult thing is that often there is never just one answer. So it's, would you, what would you test for? Which test would you choose for this particular person? So I think, it depends on what's going on for you or what has been going on for you. One question, I was asked this question recently, so, and I'm just going to answer it just to give other people some time if they do have some other questions to ask. But Amanda, I know that, you're our nutrigenomics resident expert. And we have a really nice nutrient report that we can run for our clients. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that can be really, really insightful for ladies, especially if they haven't necessarily got anything wrong with them. They don't need to change anything. They might feel okay, but they're curious about how they can make their diet even better to benefit their menopause experience, or certainly their longer term health. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about it? Because I think it's really interesting, and I know that you know way more about all this than I do.
It's I actually think it's a really, really good test, because the information that it gives you is quite a lot to do with inflammation risk. So, we all know that there's can be quite a lot of inflammation at menopause, especially if there's been previous kind of endometriosis and things like that. So it gives you your risk of inflammation, and it tells you whether your risk might also be that inflammation can become long term. And it also tells you whether you have a worse response to inflammation. And then it goes through vitamins A, D, and E, which are obviously your fat-soluble vitamins, which we want to store for a rainy day to be able to anti-inflame ourselves. And then it's got some autoimmune markers. It's got vitamin D, which is really great, as you say, for knowing what's going on with the thyroid being a cofactor to thyroid function, and vitamin A the same. And it's got glutathione, which of course is another thyroid cofactor nutrient. So when I see, something wrong with vitamin A, vitamin D, and glutathione, I'm thinking, what's this person's selenium status going to be like? Most people don't supplement or eat iodine. And so you can get real clues as to other things that can be going on. It's got 2 markers for methylation. So it's got an indicator of folate, vitamin B9 and B12. And then it's got blood pressure risk as well, which of course, us ladies, once we've gone through the menopause, one of the main things is cardiovascular disease risk, isn't it? So that's really handy. There's 2 markers for that one. And then there's 2 markers for sleep as well. So again, you can see whether somebody's predisposed to be an early bird or a night person. And I think, you know, you can get a really good rounded idea of a lot of things that's going on with a person. It's also got a microbiome marker as well. So you can actually see from the report how to support someone's immune system. You know, do they have autoimmune risk? Do they have low vitamin D potentially? Where's the vitamin D issue? Is it sensitivity or is it transport of it? Same for B12, you know, is it that it's not traveling through the system, or is it that it's more likely that it's not in the cell? So, you know, the Dutch has got the MMA marker, hasn't it, which is really useful for, you know, knowing whether it's likely to be affected within the cell rather than in the serum. So it's got absolutely loads of really good stuff in there, especially for us NTs as a tool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I think it's a really fun test as well, I think, for people to do. You know, I think it has got an amazing value, and I think we can sometimes over geek it, you know, but I think in terms of a really useful tool, I mean, it's brilliant information. That information is not going to change, you know, as you go through life. You know, they're your genes, and it's got an important message to give you. I mean, how easy is the test to do? Because we all know about blood tests, saliva tests, you know, spitting in little tubes and peeing in cups and pooing in cups. You know, we've got all that sorted, but how do you do the genetic test? It sort of sounds a bit scary, doesn't it? I think to a lot of people.
It's honestly so easy. It's just a little, looks like a little tiny flat brush that you just pull out of a tube, and you just do 30 seconds on the inside of each cheek. So, you know, with a little bit of pressure, but not really hard. You wouldn't want to drink or eat for 30 minutes before you took it, but it's literally just the minute doing this. And then you can feel along the length of the test kit, and you'll find a little groove. And you just pop it back in the test tube, snap it off at the groove, and then you get a little pill that you pop in, and you just put the lid on nice and tight. That is it, literally 1 minute. So easy. And like you say, you know, as you find things out about yourself in the future, or if you're a practitioner and, you know, you are finding more things out as you're doing more training, you will go back to that test over and over to look at your results again when you realize that it's applicable to something else. Yeah, it's a really good one.
Brill.
I was just going to add that I did it for myself, and just to reiterate what Amanda said, it is like the simplest test. I think it's probably, out of all the functional tests, the easiest one, and it just gave me such an insight into, like, say my vitamin D receptors were not working effectively. I wasn't converting any beta carotene to vitamin A, which sort of suggested that, you know, a meat-free diet wouldn't be appropriate for me. Plus I wasn't making glutathione. So it was so interesting. And given that I've got a thyroid issue, you know, seeing that after having been diagnosed with one, it just like, I don't know, it just ticks lots of boxes. And it's really, I would say it's really client friendly. So the client can read it and get a good understanding just by seeing the report. So yeah, just to add that to the chat.
Yeah, thank you. So we've got a question about the test of the cost, the cost of the test. I can't speak tonight. I don't know what's wrong with me. What we'll do is we'll send out the details afterwards, so you've got a copy of that. And also make sure that I've actually got my numbers right before I get it completely wrong and drop us all in it. I suppose a question that I'm asked a lot is, you know, general advice for perimenopause and menopause. And I think we can really block the two together. I think very often, you know, we see books that are written on perimenopause, books written on menopause, but really it's impossible to really sort of pull them apart, I think, unless you're significantly postmenopausal, where you may have more risk factors for various conditions depending on your age and your background. But what would be, if you had to give one piece of advice to someone, if they're saying, you know, what can I do in relation to my diet to improve my experience of menopause?
Okay.
Totally put you all on the spot there.
Margot, mine is eat breakfast. I work with so many clients who either skip breakfast because they're trying to do some form of fasting, or are too busy because they're feeding children or getting little people out the door, or they just feel a bit sick in the morning. And I kind of, back to your point about balancing blood sugar and inflammation, if you don't get a decent meal in, and I don't mean a bowl of cornflakes, at least some eggs, some meat, something that's going to sustain you first thing, because 9 times out of 10 a client will tick for me that kind of either the mid-morning energy slump or the mid-afternoon, and both of them kind of can be attributed to not having enough to eat in the morning. So I'd say, yeah, I always say to clients, eat breakfast. That's the most important thing.
That's a really good one, because I think intermittent fasting has become a bit of a buzzword, a bit of a fad, dare I say. And I think, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because if you read the research, yes, it works. Yes, it will do lots of amazing things for you. Yes, it will probably make you lose weight. It will support your cells. There's lists and lists and lists of benefits. But I don't think it's a good idea for women to go through menopause. And I'm totally going to put my neck on the line saying that I'm very unpopular to probably lots of personal trainers and gurus out there who are saying, no, intermittent fasting is amazing. I think, what I would say to people is, you can incorporate some form of fasting into your day by just not grazing throughout the day and eating too many snacks. You're still going to feel.
I was going to say, I say to clients, just eat your last meal of the day earlier. Still have breakfast and still have a decent breakfast. You don't necessarily need to. I think the clients I see tend to feel like they have to, if they're going to do the intermittent fasting, they've got to fast till midday. Like, it's almost like they have to skip that meal completely, but actually just 12 or 14 hours overnight without eating, having a much earlier dinner.
Yeah.
Which also will help the sleep, which I think is really key. I know we're talking about diet here, but supporting the sleep by having an earlier meal is definitely beneficial.
Yeah. And I think it's so easy to kind of jump on the bandwagon, isn't it? You watch all these webinars and recordings and podcasts and stuff, and everyone's raving about intermittent fasting. And I think, yeah, for some people it works really, really well. But if you're struggling with your hormones and you're struggling with symptoms like sleep, inflammation, balancing your hormones, just cutting back on your food, it isn't necessarily going to be that magic wand, is it? And I think the more menopausal ladies I work with, the more I see that it's just not always the best idea. Any other suggestions?
Well, just going back to the inflammation angle, I would really advocate, generally speaking, an anti-inflammatory diet, like adhering to the principles of the Mediterranean diet. Is really lovely because it's filled with, lots of rainbow colours of fruits and vegetables, but also really lots of healthy fats like the olives, the avocados, the nuts and seeds, with the healthy sort of plant proteins and oily fish. So they're all lovely anti-inflammatory foods. And I think that's really important during the peri or menopausal period. I would say that's a top tip.
Yeah, and you don't need to buy a fancy book to do it either, do you?
No, not at all. It doesn't need to take long. You could, like, I don't know, batch cook a load of roasted vegetables, a huge colourful load of, I don't know, beetroots, carrots and squashes and whatnot at the start of the week that you can then add into salads, or top with some salmon or some halloumi or something. There's lots of different options, I think, with it. So yeah.
I think a key thing you said there is eat fat.
Yeah.
I think a lot of women need to eat more fat.
Yeah.
I think, but if you think about it, I don't know how old you all are, but if I think back to you know, my mum, my friends' mums when I was growing up, it was all like Rosemary Conley diets and like doing exercise with Lizzie on the telly and you know, all that kind of stuff. And you know, I mean, Rosemary Conley, sorry Rosemary, I'm sure you're not listening, but if you do, you know, totally fat phobic. You know, I remember reading an article saying that, you know, no, you can't even have like a teaspoon of oil, you know, it's absolutely no fat. And I think a lot of girls in their later 40s probably still remember their mums doing crazy fat-free diets, and it's still been a thing. And I think, you know, we do take this stuff with us, you know, even, you know, if we don't realize it, it's still sort of there in the back of our mind, you know, reading calories on boxes and how much fat's in things, and you know, like low cal everything. So
that's replaced with other things that aren't,
yeah,
and such, which is what will drive the weight gain and such. So yeah, but it's changing, yeah, the mentality, which I think it is a bit. Definitely, I think people are more aware, but yeah, and also there's obviously different varieties of fats, but there's getting in the healthy ones are really vital, especially because they the fats contribute to sex hormone, you know, making of the sex hormones. So really important from that aspect as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Claire,
Sorry, I was just going to say my top tip would be to include protein with every meal, because you need your protein for your neurotransmitters, so to support the low mood that can come with perimenopause and menopause, and also because of wear and tear, so more repair processes basically. Also to keep you full, so stop you overeating, not having so many empty calories, and that would be kind of my top tip.
Thank you. And are there any gems from Metabolic Balance that you can think of, Claire, that might be a good suggestion?
Well, probably sleep. I was going to touch on sleep.
Yeah.
We, you know, that's when, you know, weight loss really key. So sorting out your circadian rhythm, sorting out your, you know, your sleep hygiene is massively important. It's important for all of us, isn't it? We all feel better with a good night's sleep. And I know that, you know, in perimenopause and menopause, women do suffer with night sweats, and, you know, that will tie in with Fiona's blood sugar balance. But, you know, if we can have an anti-inflammatory diet, plenty of protein throughout the day, then your sleep should improve. And your sleep is key to how we feel. I really, really believe that.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I was going to say something, I've just completely forgotten what I was going to say. Maybe I need some choline. What do you reckon, Amanda? Or more estrogen? Maybe a bit of both.
Yes, I bought myself some choline recently, which is not the nicest one. So when I, you know, when I take it, but you can get capsules, so it's really good. But
you're mad having that as a liquid. What are you thinking, mad woman?
It is not nice.
So, Claire, just going back to what you said, just for people who might not get what we're talking about, can you just briefly explain what the circadian rhythm is?
Sorry, it's your clock, your wake sleep cycle. So you know, that's all based around your internal body clocks, really.
Brilliant. So I'm like the one just checking in, because I think when we all get together, we can just start talking about all kinds of random sciencey things, and then people might go, what are they talking about? So okay, did anyone have any other questions they'd like to ask? Because I can't quite believe we've been going for 50 minutes. I don't think I had any of the questions. Does anyone have anything else they wanted to mention, or they feel it's important for really just sort of general points about menopause nutrition, I think?
I think one thing that I just wanted to mention is the importance of stress and managing stress is vital for, you know, you could be doing everything right with your diet, but if you're not managing your stress, then it really isn't going to make, well, it will make some impact, but I think that's the biggest thing I've learned along my nutrition journey, is the importance of stress management and finding things that work for you personally, because it can really vary between individuals as to what, you know, makes people feel happy. and it can sound trivial, trying to do your breathing exercises, meditation, or going for walks in nature, but they really can make such an impact, and also impact on your sleep as well, and the circadian rhythms that we were talking about. So I think just adding that in there, because I don't think we mentioned it so much, but just the importance of looking at your whole sort of stress load and working out ways to reduce that, or at least sort of try and manage or balance it.
No, that's a really good point. Thank you. I think what I wanted to mention briefly, and some of you may have watched it, but we did a session on menopause supplements a couple of weeks ago. And I think there's a lot of buzz around menopause products, partly because there are more people talking about menopause. It's becoming a bit more mainstream than it was even this time last year or the year before. And there are lots of supplements out there that are menopause supplements. Now, I get a bit of a bee in my bonnet about this, because I think we shouldn't necessarily be looking for a menopause supplement, because there are so many possible nutrients you could use to support your menopause. Why would you take a product that's got everything in it if some of those things aren't necessarily going to help the symptoms that you have? And also they're very massively in price, from very, very, very inexpensive products, which aren't the best quality, all the way up to products that are nearly £200 for a month's supply. So I think you have to be quite careful. And there are good products out there and not so good products out there. I have mentioned some products that I like on my Instagram page, I think on Facebook as well. But if you did want to ask us anything about supplements, you can email us. But really, I think my view, and I probably speak for everyone here, is that the supplements have to be tailored to the individual. You can't tailor yourself to a product, because that product is, it's the same for everyone, and you might vary individual needs, which I think in some ways takes us back to what you were talking about, Amanda, with the genetics test as well.
I think as well, it's so tempting, isn't it? You're listening to podcasts, and you're watching or looking on Instagram at other people, and it's so tempting to read somebody's success story and think that it can be yours, and then you rush out and you buy that product, and actually it makes no difference to you whatsoever. And by the time you calculate the cost of the supplements, you could have easily have had an hour with a nutritional therapist that would guide you towards, what is it that you actually need? That, like you say, there is no protocol for supplements. It's individual, and getting the right advice is really key, I think, because often we're able to just suggest hardly any supplements, but because they're the right ones, they have such a good effect on that individual person. And another thing I was just thinking about as well, for another tip really, would be fiber, wouldn't it? With ladies that we, especially if we're on HRT and we want to be knowing that we're obviously going to the toilet every day and not constipated, because that's how we get rid of toxins within the body and excess hormones. So just thinking about fiber in your diet as well.
That's a really, really good point. So I think my top tip would be just be wary of products that have menopause on them. I think in the supplement webinar, which you should be able to access on my Instagram page if you're on there, and if not, I'll make sure that it's there. Or Claire might have to help me make sure it's there. I think just be wary of anything with menopause on, whether it's menopause shakes or menopause essential oils, menopause CBD oil, menopause multivitamins. I mean, they're all, I think you should question them all, because, it just seems that there's a menopause something for everything at the moment. It's like menopause knickers and menopause gym kit, menopause pillowcases, there's menopause everything going around. And I think that often comes with a big price tag. Not always. I please, I think there are some amazing products out there, but you have to make sure that they're the right product for you.
Just to add to your point, Charlotte, it's really important as well that I think a lot of people don't realise that there are interactions between herbs and foods as well as medications. And so, you know, when you go to see a professional, you're having all that checked for you. You know, you've got that peace of mind, whereas actually you could be going into boots, you could be on blood pressure medications, and you could not realise that actually what you're about to take is going to halve the effectiveness potentially of the medication that you're on. And then you've got issues rising in the background, and you know, you can't understand it, your doctor can't understand it, and you know, quite often, you know, it's can be quite dangerous, can't it?
Yeah, or even, you know, the supplements could make your medications more effective as well, which is, you know, just as bad, if not worse, isn't it? You know, if you're ramping that up.
Yeah.
So you know, whenever I talk about any supplements publicly, I always say, you know, please read this small print. you know, if you have any medications, named conditions, pregnant, breastfeeding, any of those things, you know, please be careful and consult a medical practitioner. Have we got one more question? I think we might.
Just to add on the supplements, and it relates to food as well, is to ensure that the supplements are being absorbed in all the delicious foods and lovely foods that you're eating. You need to know that your gut is working effectively to actually absorb those lovely things. And so, you know, you might be spending a fortune on the supplements, for example, but you know, they're not being absorbed because of issues going on in your gut. So it's really, I mean, that's another beauty of working with a nutritionist is that you can get to the root cause of any gut imbalances or issues there.
Yeah, and I think as a team, I think we're quite fortunate because we've got quite a diverse range of experiences and skills and training and background. Obviously, we do a lot of training together, so we're all singing from the same hymn sheet and all that. But I think we do have varying skill sets, certainly with different conditions in different areas. So you know, if someone contacts us and wants to work with me, but they're more interested in their nutrigenomics or weight loss or perimenopause, or they're a lot younger, then I'm going to recommend that they're going to work with one of the other girls. And it works both ways. And also, you know, if we get inquiries and we're not equipped to deal with it, you know, we'll refer on to our wider network. So we've got a question here. I've been suggested to start tamoxifen as chemo prevention. Sister has estrogen and positive sensitive BRCA. Can nutrition and supplements replace tamoxifen? I'm 49 years. So I'll just answer this in a general sense, because you know we can't give specific advice. I think if you're under the care of a medical professional, doctor, it's beyond our remit to try and replace their advice with nutritional support or lifestyle support. We can work alongside your doctors and other practitioners, which you know a lot of us do already. I write lots of GP letters and doctors' letters. Excuse me. But I think we can work alongside, but we can't necessarily replace. You know, it certainly wouldn't be our call, and I think that would be a conversation to have with your doctor. And you know, we could potentially help you and support you, but you know, it's a slightly bigger issue than just a straightforward question: can nutrition and supplements replace tamoxifen? There's a lot more to that, I think, and obviously, you know, we'd be happy to talk to you privately if that would help. But I think, you know, food and nutrition is incredibly powerful, and there are cases where, you know, we can use it instead of other things, but again, it's always alongside the guidance of your medical practitioner. I'm not sure I've answered that very well. Does anyone want to? Has anyone got anything to add?
I think if you think about that situation, there's a lot of things involved in that situation. So, you know, there's going to be nutrient depletions from that medication, that we could potentially plug that gap would be really important. And then I think, you know, the stress of that statement as well, you know, going through that journey and learning how to manage that and how to restrict the potential issues that cortisol could cause to the body, and having all of that support really and hand holding through that situation. And then at the you know, basically just making sure that everything's as good as it can be with the diet as well, because of course, you know, we know what BRCA, the issues that brings, but we know that it's hugely driven by lifestyle as well, rather than just genetics. So, you know, just learning to manage your lifestyle and your diet is, you know, negates a lot of risk, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think, you know, there's a lot you can explore around the issue. You know, obviously, as Amanda just said, and we talked about things like the Dutch test. Well, that would be a brilliant idea to see how you're metabolizing your hormones. So what your levels are, how your body's using them, and more importantly, how is your body getting rid of the hormones? Because that's the important thing for someone, I think, in your position. It's not just about the genetic influences, or the diet, or the supplements, or the potential drugs. I think it's, how is your body working? You know, what is it doing? How are your cells working? Are they talking to each other? You know, Amanda brought up fiber. You know, are you going to the toilet every day? How's your gut working? So lots and lots and lots of stuff, I think, around that, you know, as you said, Amanda, as well.
And what's detoxification like?
Yeah.
You know, what's your predisposition? Which type of estrogen are you likely to produce? You know, so it's fantastic to see what's your glutathione status, because glutathione is how we actually take the more dangerous forms of estrogen and you know, try to recycle them into something less dangerous. So there's lots of different factors that, you know, can be really supported in that situation, I think, with a good Dutch test and a good estrogen panel.
And I'm just going to do it again. Can you explain what glutathione is?
Yeah, sorry. So glutathione is what we call an antioxidant. So it's a compound that the body produces, and basically it can be used to offset toxicity within the body, but also every single person has a predisposition to go down one of three pathways, or all three pathways genetically, with their estrogen, and some are more favorable than others. And it would be glutathione that would take the more dangerous forms and turn them into something less dangerous for the body, basically. So we can actually be born with the ability to produce glutathione through one of the main genes, or we can actually be born without it. So as me, for an example, I don't have the main glutathione gene at all. So I know that I need to obviously be very aware of that with estrogen in my life and with how toxic my lifestyle is.
Excellent, thank you. But don't go out and start taking glutathione.
No.
just to be clear.
Yeah, because
it's good stuff. You can have too much of a good thing, like anything.
Yeah, not everybody needs it, and it's hugely expensive, and it goes back to exactly what we were saying about you only need what you need.
Yeah. Well, look, we've been going for just over an hour, and as it's a school night and it's getting late, I think we should probably call it a day. If there are any last minute questions, I still can't speak. Please feel free to quickly put them in the chat. Or you can email us, like I said. So it's hello@charlottehunternutrition.co.uk. We will send out the information about the genetic test, how much it costs, and how you can speak to the lovely Amanda. But if I can just say thank you to everyone for joining me this evening. Thank you, Fiona, Amanda, Melanie, and Claire. You've been superstars, as always. And hopefully we can do this another time. I think it's really nice just to get together and talk about what we do, why we do it, how we do it, and then hopefully answer a few questions along the way. So thank you very much, everyone. And thank you for joining us as well. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.